Meeting to order for this day. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you will, turn around because the flag is outside now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated. And if you will, please, respect to the commission, just silence or turn off your cell phones during this meeting. We would appreciate that. And today we're operating under much different circumstances as most meetings are now being held. We have some commissioners that are watching by television or by YouTube and will be forwarding questions to me via my cell phone. We will have citizens calling in via phone calls with questions and or comments, so we ask those that are watching here and by other means to be patient with us as we move these cases forward. The phone number in which to call is 706-225-3937, and it should be scrolling on your screen for those that are watching electronically. I remind those in the audience and those watching by television, this is the first hearing of any rezoning, text change, or special exception request brought before us today. We will first hear a reading of the staff report for the case by planning staff. We will ask the applicant to provide a brief overview of the request. We will then give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against that request or to inquire about the said request. Commissioners will have time for any needed discussion on the case. Once a motion is made and seconded by the commission, a vote will take place and a recommendation will be rendered. The case will go back to the planning department for their independent recommendation. If a favorable recommendation is given, then the case is forwarded to the City Council with the two independent recommendations. That would be ours and the planning department's. If the planning department makes a recommendation for denial, the applicant will have 10 days from the receipt of a letter stating the denial to notify the clerk of council that they are requesting to be placed on City Council's agenda. The City Council of Columbus will hold a public meeting, and that will be the first reading. Said council will also consider the case, review our recommendation, planning department recommendations, and hear discussion on the matter. Council will make a final decision at a second public meeting, and that's called the second reading. All right, first agenda item today. I hope everyone was able to receive the minutes from, if we didn't have any, I don't think we have any, do we?
There weren't any minutes for this one. They'll be available for the next meeting.
All right, well, we'll pass on that then. And I'd like to welcome, of course, Gloria Thomas, who's been with us, and Sheila Brown is with us today down here in the front, that are our newest members of the Planning Advisory Commission meeting. We're glad to have you here today. So that'll bring us to our first case today, rezoning case REZN 07202240, a request to rezone 2.13 acres of land located at 1821 Whittlesey Road. Current zoning is RO, which is residential office. Proposed zoning is GC, general commercial. The proposed use is office, storage in the third building. Andrew Krawczyk is the applicant, and I apologize if I butchered that. The property is located in Council District 8, Garrett. We'll hear from the Planning Department on the staff report first, please.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, sir. General land use is consistent in Planning Area A. The current land use designation is general commercial. Future is general commercial. It is compatible with existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to an issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase by 124 trips if used for commercial. The level of service will remain a level B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. There will be no school impact. The buffer requirement, the site shall include a Category C buffer along all property lines bordered by the SFR3 zoning district. Those three options under Category C are 20 feet with a certain amount of canopy trees, understory trees, and shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet. The codes and regulations of the Columbus Consolidated Government for commercial usage. There will be no school impact. The site shall include a Category C buffer along the property lines bordered by SFR2. zoning district. The three options on a category C are 20 feet with a certain amount of canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, 10 feet with a certain amount of shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, and a wood fence or masonry wall, 30 feet undisturbed natural buffer. No response from Fort Benning, no DRI recommendation. Surrounding zoning north is SFR2, and then southeast and west is all three are general commercial. 35 property owners within 300 feet of the subject's properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received 40 calls and emails in opposition for this case. And then just to note, this is from ordinance 09-53, and they're wanting to go from the original 27 feet that was in that ordinance to 50 feet now.
All right, sir. And you did provide us that ordinance. Hope everybody had an opportunity to take a look at that. And anyway. All right, Commissioners, y'all have any questions of the Planning Department at this time? All right. Do we have representation on this case? If you would please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and tell us what your plans are here, please.
Good morning. My name is Will Barnes. I'm an architect with the local firm Barnes Gibson Partners Architects, and I'm here representing Artisan Properties, who's the owner. In short, I'm not sure that it was clear in the application, but we're requesting an amendment to the conditions to go from the 26 feet, which was a previous condition when the property was rezoned years ago, from neighborhood commercial to general commercial, to 50 feet, which would be the original requirement for a neighborhood commercial property. It also happens to coincide with the three-story building that we're proposing that you have a copy of in your packet. The other thing that I noticed, and in the plans that we submitted, the front page of the site plan shows pretty distinctly the lease line around the building. I wanted to hand out additional copies, if you don't mind passing those around.
Yes.
Of the actual meets and bounds legal description, and then a graphic that shows the area that we're requesting the height modification to. It is?
It's against policy to hand out new documents.
Okay. Well, the information provided in the handout I had was just a clarity of what's already in your proposal. So,
well, let me tell you, you can put it over on the overhead and present it to everybody if you'd like. That
Sure.
would be fine.
You can present, you just can't hand out individual copies.
Right. We need the public to see what you're planning to do.
Sure. Okay, so what's on the screen represents the area that we're requesting the height modification, and compared to the drawings that you have, you'll see that this does not include the building, existing building to the north part of the site that was described in the 2.83 acres. This actually represents 1.2 acres. And the reason for this clarification is that our understanding of why the height restriction was set at 26 feet was because that height restriction included 4 properties which are immediately adjacent to single-family residential. This is one of those 4 properties, but the portion that we're proposing is not adjacent to those single-family residences. So we just wanted to clarify that. And then I wanted to bring your attention to the drawings that y'all have, and the final sheet, I believe it's A03, shows a site section. So the property to the north of the site, you'll see referenced on the left-hand side of that existing residence up at 307.5, that's finished floor. Existing building, which you may recall was where the El Vaquero restaurant used to be. It's now storage, is at 293. And then you can see our proposed building. On that graphic, that section, you'll see how the 3-story building will impact the site and how the visibility will be from the residences. And you can also see the reference to the 50 feet requested and the approximately 45 feet height of the building that we're proposing. In addition, we've included renderings of the building showing the mixture of glass and brick and how it will fit on the site.
Commissioners, if y'all had an opportunity to take a look at these photographs, these renderings, et cetera, you all taken a look at the site. Hopefully you have. All right, Commissioners, do y'all have any questions of Mr. Barnes, Mr. Renfro?
Yes, sir. I have a question. Are you planning to keep this as one single parcel, or is this going to be subdivided?
One single parcel.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Bollinger.
And under the way that it's currently set, you could go 2 stories, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, oh, was that your question? Okay. All right. Any other questions, Commissioners? And did you receive a memo from Midtown?
We did.
Okay. Did you have any comments to make on that at this point, or would you like to come back after others get to speak?
I'll be glad to come back. We met with an executive committee of Midtown and described the project to them, showed them the renderings that you have in front of you, and had some discussion so that they could represent their group and answer questions if they received phone calls, which I understand they did. And also got input from them on, they're in a position where they don't want any more than the rest of us who live in Midtown something that would be detrimental to the area. So we answered their questions and received their endorsement with some additional thoughts that were received. So the landscaping that is already being planned and the sidewalks that are part of the project, those kind of things, they were encouraged by and ultimately gave us an endorsement for what we're planning.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I'll be glad to come back up if there are questions.
Sure thing. All right. No other questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience like to come and speak for this change? If you would, please come forward at this time. Is anyone in the audience like to speak in opposition to this change? Please come forward, state your name and address, please, for the record.
Good morning. My name is Tammy Reynolds. I live at 2932 Birchfield Drive. My property is one of the properties that will be most impacted by this storage facility being built in the parking lot. Birchfield Drive, if you think about Auburn Avenue going headed north up Auburn Avenue, Birchfield is that first right-hand turn. My backyard, which is one of the reasons that I fell in love with this house, is very private because of the commercial that's behind it. We moved in there knowing that there was commercial there, but was under the understanding that there was conditions put in place when that building that exists now was built, that it would not be a height that exceeded of 26 or 27 feet high. Now I know technically it is not a spot zoning issue, but in my mind it is a spot zoning issue of 1.2 acres in that parking lot that's going to go up 3 floors. Now, I contacted the extra storage offices there in Cross Country to find out the number of units that they had and what their occupancy rate is right now, and they were not willing to share that information with me. I know living in that area and on that intersection constantly, I go to church at St. Paul, I'm shopping at Publix all the time, I don't see cars parked in those parking lots for the storage buildings all the time. In fact, rarely do I ever see a car. Now, I know people are coming and going in storage. My first concern is, do we really need a 3-story storage facility built in that parking lot? Now, from my backyard, based on what the drawings that they submitted show, I'll be sitting on my patio and I will see the top of a 3-story concrete and glass, but I'll be looking at the back of it, concrete storage building from my backyard. It negatively impacts my property value. For all of us there, those first 4 houses on Birchfield, our property values will be impacted more so than others in the neighborhood. However, through real estate comps, the other neighborhood house prices and values will go down as well. Looking at the drawings, the landscaping they put in the drawings are beautiful. I know I've seen other planning committee meetings and I've seen other drawings and visuals of what people are going to do when they get buildings done. And it not always turns out that way. If Midtown, and I was not aware that Midtown had agreed with this, if they included the extra landscaping, I understand that we do need it to look prettier over there, and I know Midtown is doing a lot to make this area look better, but a concrete storage building is not going to help. A 3-story concrete storage building is not going to help Midtown look better, and that's really a major crossroads of the Midtown world here in Columbus. When Extra Storage came in and wanted to turn all of those buildings into storage, I had mixed feelings about it, but I understand that today, the way retail goes, that Cross Country was having a difficult time keeping those spaces rented for retail, and I get it. And I thought, well, they'll be good neighbors, it'll be quiet, they'll keep it clean, and actually did help the company in talking with our neighbors and said, you know, this is the best that can be done right now, and so let's just kind of back off of giving them a hard time. Whether my voice impacted that or not, I can't say, but I did help Extra Storage, I feel like. But now to come in and want to put up a 3-story concrete storage facility that's going to be what I see in the morning when I'm reading my drinking my coffee and doing my Bible study, it's keeping me up at night, to be honest with you. So that's how I feel. I know that 40 people called, that it was noted 40 people called in opposition. It's amazing to me that that many people called in such a short period of time. The notice to rezone sign went up the first part of September. I noticed it September 4th and called. On September 8th or 9th, the sign had been destroyed. Both signs had been destroyed and were laying in the parking lot for at least a week. I felt like the city would come back and put it up and did not call. Finally, on the 15th, I called the city and said, your signs have been vandalized and have been laying in the parking lot for over a week now. No one knows to protest. No one has an opinion because they don't know what's going on. And the Friday of that week, which was on the 18th, the sign was finally put back up sometime between noon and 5. So we've got almost a 2-week time period that people passing through did not have the opportunity to see the sign, to call and relate any sort of opposition or pro-comment for it. And when they did, I had several people tell me that because the person who was supposed to be contacted was out on maternity leave, which is a great thing and a blessing and no harm done there. However, they got transferred to different phone calls and phone numbers, and several people just got frustrated and quit trying to call. So I'm just lay that out there to say that maybe not everyone has had the opportunity to see or realize what's going to happen in Midtown. So.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hang on just a minute.
Okay.
Any questions from anyone? I saw your finger go up there. Anyway, do you have a question, Ms. Thomas?
You said this is right behind your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Anyone else want to speak? Ask a question? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I do have a question to Mr. Barnes. I noticed the topography of that property, it kind of flows downward from the existing building. How much of that's going to be apparent to these people on Birchfield? Do you have any idea?
If you look at the section on page A03 in your original application, you'll see a site section at the top of the page. That's what I was referring to before. The existing residence on the left side represents the property along Birchfield. So you can see that the floor line there is at 307.5, whereas our proposed building is at 293, so approximately 15 feet below, relatively speaking. If the existing building just behind the residence, the one that El Vaquero used to be in, were increased to 2 stories, which is allowable under the current conditions, that would have plus or minus 5 to 7 feet more impact visually on the residences. And again, that was the reason for the original condition, is my understanding, is to protect those residences just adjacent to the properties, in this case, that existing building, which is why we've purposefully looked at the building location where it is outboard from that. And you can see by the diagonal line that goes across, and what this picture doesn't represent is the mature trees that are behind the residences and between the buildings. There's no doubt you can see this property from the adjacent residences, but it is buffered by existing trees, and you can see that the impact visually of the height of the new building is not going to be significant relative to what it could be if it was the building just adjacent to the residences.
Okay, all right.
I will say, in Ms. Reynolds' presentation, she mentioned that the conditions were put on the original building when that was constructed, which is not the case. The existing building was there long before these conditions were implemented. The conditions were implemented less than 10 years ago, as I recall, in order to rezone this from neighborhood commercial to general commercial. General commercial allows 70 feet. And Midtown, along with residences, got together and said, well, 2 stories is reasonable, especially on these adjacent properties, so 26 became the number. We're just asking for it to go back to that original 50, which was what was allowed before it was rezoned. And would like for you to take into consideration the location of the property and the height relative and the view lines that we've presented.
Okay. So you're not planning on doing anything with the existing building now at all? You're going to leave it as it is, and then you're going to build the new one in the front?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, y'all have any questions? All right, thank you. Is anyone else in the audience who would like to come up and speak for or against this case? Please come forward at this time. Yes, sir. Please, just a minute, tell us your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Spencer.
Yes, sir.
I live at 7200 Grandview Court here in Columbus. I'm the Vice President of Artisan Properties. We've been in the self-storage business 25 years from here in Columbus. One thing to address that Ms. Reynolds pointed out was as to the landscaping and anything else like that. If that's a requirement we agree to in any sort of change, we'll be bound by it. But as much as anything, we've kind of done whatever we needed to in the communities we've developed in to make our places look nice, to attract the customers, to be a good neighbor as best we could. As far as it goes, I never want that to be a condition of our rezoning, but we're about 90% full. So the community has embraced the need for the storage, and you know, we do foresee obviously the ability to fill up this 3-story building when as and if we can get that proposal through.
Okay. All right, commissioners, y'all have any questions, Mr. Spencer? Anyone? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else like to come forward and speak at this time for or against this case? Okay, if you would please come up to the microphone.
Just one more thing to address the issue of the mature landscaping that's already in existence back behind there. There are some trees there. I don't know that they were specifically planted because a lot of it's weed trees, and in the wintertime, the leaves and pine stuff falls out of those trees, and so I have a clear vision right into that parking lot for a good half of the year. In the summertime, it's a little bit thicker, but then Georgia Power comes through there every once in a while because there's a power line that runs back there, and they trim down and cut back. You've seen how they beautifully trim back trees. And so it's not that that's always going to be a buffer. I just wanted to clarify that. It's not a pretty looking something there.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? All right. Commissioners, open the floor up for a motion on this case. If there's no other questions, yes, sir.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Renfro, some of the complaints that you got, what were their concerns?
Most of their complaints were security, lighting, the actual height of it, since there was already a condition on the property, and then they were worried about their property values if this was approved.
Okay.
All right. Does that answer your? Anyone else? All right. The floor is open for a motion. Ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sir. Mr. Derby.
I'll make a motion.
Can you get your microphone? There you go. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, in reference to REZN 09202531, a request to rezone 2.83 acres of land located at 3100 Auburn Avenue. Current zoning is GC with conditions. Proposed zoning is GC with amended conditions. The proposed use is self-storage. Tracy Spencer is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 5. I recommend we approve it.
All right. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I second it.
All right, we have a second from Ms. Thomas. Any discussion? All those in favor to approve, please raise your right hand. And all those opposed? Okay, it is approved by a vote of 4-3, and thank you very much for your time. All right. And we move on to the last case of the day, which is a text amendment change, which is REZN 09202706. This is a request for a text amendment to amend the text of the Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO, in regards to amending Table 3.1.1 and Section 9.2.5. And I think we'll be hearing from the Planning Department on that one, correct?
Yes, sir. This is a text amendment to amend 3.1.1 to permit fuel stations in HMI, as well as make some changes to wording in Section 9.2.5 for the Uptown Facade Board, changing it from Uptown Business Association to Uptown Business Improvement District.
We'll be finished in just a few minutes. Thank you. Okay, so can you define fuel stations? Would that be what type?
We originally, I believe we came back a few months ago and add fuel stations to LMI. When we were in the process of doing that, we forgot to put HMI in as well. That would just be stations where the tankers are filling up on site.
The tankers, go ahead and
define. The larger trucks, the 18-wheelers are filling up to actually take out the gas, the fuel.
I got you. Okay. All right. Y'all have any questions? Anyone have any questions of Mr. Renfro regarding this change? Anyone? All right. We need a motion to either accept or deny this one. Mr. Brannon.
Get this back up here. In the case of REZN-09-20-2706, a request to change the UDO, specifically amend Table 3.1.1 to allow fueling stations in HMI, and to amend Section 9.2.5 to replace Business Association at the end of letter C with Business Improvement District. I move that we recommend approval.
All right, we have a motion to approve. We have a second. Mr. Bollinger, any discussion? All right, all those in favor of accepting this change, raise your right hand. And all opposed by the same. All right, we're done with cases for today. All right, and we'll move on down the agenda. Is there any new business we need to discuss? Anyone? Again, we welcome you here. We're glad to have you today, and thank you for your participation. If there's no new business, Mr. Renfro, what about cases next month? How are we doing for November?
Right now, we don't have anything. Our next case is going to be, if there's applications turned in by October the 19th, we'll have one November the 18th.
So we don't have another meeting this month?
No, sir.
Okay. So it looks like November 18th could be our next meeting time. Okay. All right. And we'll move on to old business, which is the Planning Advisory Commission handbook. Has everyone had an opportunity to take a look at the handbook? You have not. Okay, Ms. Thomas has not. Do you have copies of those available today, or?
I don't have any with me, but I can forward her the Trello link that has it included.
I'll give her mine. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I'll be glad to. I'll share that. Do you want to go over it, or do you want to allow everyone to get a little bit more familiarized with it when we bring it back up on the November meeting of the 18th?
Well, I think we should probably postpone it and bring it back up on the 18th at our next meeting.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Just to give everybody an opportunity to take a look at it.
Well, if you don't have a copy of it, please contact John or go on Trello and pull it up. It's in your archives.
It's actually in the first column, about halfway down. It's just the PAC handbook. It's right there. You can download it as a PDF and print it from there.
Right, and you can either read it on your electronically or you can print it off, as I did here. So, but anyhow, just take a look at that. It kind of gives you some guidelines and that sort of thing. Each year we used to have a luncheon, but under these circumstances, we're not doing anything like that at this point, but hopefully we can in the future. But is there any other old business we need to talk about? Again, thank you for your participation. Thank you for being here, and we are adjourned.